right, hello, and welcome to Thursday night's episode of Questioning Everything. How is everyone tonight out there? I hope you guys are staying warm if you're part of this frigid winter storm pattern that's coming in. It's supposed to be negative 20 degrees in my neck of the woods. Very, very cold. So, got high winds. We're not getting any snow, but we're going to get very high winds, very cold. So if the stream suddenly dips out for whatever reason, you know what's going on here. And hopefully, though, we don't have any problems. All right. So last Tuesday's episode here, we were talking about the world's fairs. And one of the videos that I wanted to queue up here was the Cabbage Patch video here. One of the first ever films made. It was made in 1896. Talking a little bit about the Cabbage Patch Kids um, in the previous episode. So this video I'll play right here for you at the beginning of the episode, kind of tying into last show. This is called The Cabbage Fairy, if you guys haven't seen it. It's about a minute or so long film, but kind of definitely portrays, and again, it's always the kids, right? So let me just get that queued up for you here. All right. Don't really need the sound, so I'll kind of turn that down a little bit for you. So this is the first ever film. Well, the first ever female directed and led film. Like in 1896, The Fairy of Cabbage. And those are live babies, by the way. And she's just going to go ahead and plop that one down on the ground, looking like it's a newborn baby. Just as insane as pretty much any other Hollywood film you see today. She's just going to plop another baby down there. All tying into the babies grown in cabbages and cabbage patches. Okay. So that one is all set up here. Give me just a moment here, folks. I'm having a little bit of an issue with some of my streaming on one of my sites. I don't think my Facebook is going to be streaming tonight, folks. I do apologize. Looks like that kind of crashed on here. We're having a little bit of internet issues and the great northern frosty woods here. So it should be good for the streaming part, but it looks like it did mess up my Facebook connection. So for those of you watching on Facebook, I do apologize. Got plenty of other streams though. So very odd, very crazy work with that Cabbage Patch field indeed, right? I highlighted a little bit about that Tuesday, along with the Zoo of People, um, all those kind of oddities that all seem to involve kids, the orphan asylums, orphan trains. So even in the past, there seems to be the same type of trafficking, okay, that there was today, or there is today. The modern Wayfair has not been a new thing. Epstein Island's not a new thing, apparently. So, what we'll talk about here today is a little bit more about the frozen poles, or the lack of land in the north, like they say. And talk a little bit about birds' journeys to both of those poles, and then we'll get into what the new lands really were. You know, they called America the new land, right? And was it really that new? Was it civilization like Tartaria? Perhaps Tartaria expanded outward, and like all the other cities, all the other countries, all the other continents, suffered that same mud event, that mud flood, right? So we're going to be looking in a little bit closer into the mud flood in America. Um, show you some oddities, some odd photos that don't track with the narrative, like the Seattle Underground being buried and raised because of the Great Fire of Seattle that we covered a couple videos back. But you'll find that's the excuse for many of these streets, many of these city streets that are raised upwards. They say, oh, it's because of great fires that they had or because of floods, but you'll never find any ash. You'll never find any charred bricks below street grade. And all the cities that were raised because of the flood levels, they never have any flooding underground. Strange how that works. So, I want to take a couple questions here first from last episode I gathered up. Kind of questions you guys had in the comments or in the chat that I didn't get to that I thought, we'd highlight a little bit before we jump back into it. So, Jason says, what's the weirdest thing you found on those old North Pole maps? Well, by far, it's the four island masses and the black rock in the middle that goes back all the way in the 1500s, not earlier maps, and then suddenly they vanish. But you still can't really get a real clear picture of the poles from either the satellites or anything like that. We'll show you tonight that a lot of those photos or those satellite images that we do get from the North Pole are actually just composites that are stitched together, and there's seems to be a hole in the middle, even if you look on Google Earth today. So officially, this map, made famous by Mercator, but was even in maps as far back as the 1500s, probably even further back. But you have the four land masses, and right here in the middle, you have Rupus Nigre, Black Rock. So, and we talked about when you officially try and book a trip there because the North Pole is less restrictive than the Arctic. The Arctic, you can't pass the 60th parallel south without signed written permission from your home country of origin because of the Arctic Treaty, right? The treaty that's been the longest lasting treaty signed by all nations, essentially. But the North Pole doesn't have said treaty. Um, it is, though, highly, highly expensive to get to. We talked about that a little bit last episode, right? It's like $10,000 just to charter a plane from Alaska to the polar region with a 8 hour or so layover. And then you have to take an icebreaker ship, like an icebreaker cruise, and that's another tens of thousands of dollars, not to mention all the cold weather gear, etc. Basically, you have to be very, very rich to go there. Wicked here says you can't pass the dew line. I'm not sure what you mean by the dew line, but I really seen no, ex like, no restrictions quite like, Antarctica has in place. Antarctica, the moment you pass the 60th parallel, um, you can't you will be intercepted. They say they don't have any, like, naval bases in the area, but, naval ships will, converge on you rather quickly. They do have satellites that patrol the area quite hard. It's still restricted at the North Pole. The best that I could find is, you might have some Canadian, um, issues at the border, but there's not at least not as restrictive, I should say, Wicked. Um, Not like, the South Pole, but, um, getting there is almost more difficult, I would contest. The Antarctic trips you have a lot of tour options. Of course, they won't take you anywhere but, like, the peninsula of Antarctica, which, I mean, you don't really get to see anything. It's like seeing the skyline of Chicago and saying you saw all of Chicago. You basically get a glimpse of it, and that alone costs you $10,000. But that's like a little more set up trips. They also have like some kind of flyovers and stuff in in the South Pole. But of course, you need permission from your government to go there. You can't just find a boat that would make it past the rough waters, and book an independent trip. You would have to get express permission to go on your own by your own government. So when they say, "Oh, you can go take a trip to Antarctica," no, you really can't. Um, so at the North Pole, all these land masses and the talks of a magnetic mountain, that is the reason why all of our compasses point north. Even when you stand on the South Pole, your compass will still point south. That was one of the questions I got asked as well here. Let me see who asked it. Give me a moment here. Yes. I can't find where the question is, but it was one of the questions I had saved here. Yeah, even when you go past the equator south and you get on the South Pole, it will still point north. King says our compass has been pointing the direction we need to go with an arrow, even. Exactly. It's like it's drawing us there. I agree with you there. So the trail first starts with the Rupus Nigre rock back in the 14th century in a book called Inventio Fortunata. A Franciscan friar described sailing north, seeing a massive black magnetic rock 33 miles around. There's that 33 again, right? With a huge whirlpool sucking in 4 rivers from surrounding lands. Mercator got a hold of it in the 1570s via a letter from John Dee, that's Queen Elizabeth's occult advisor. Mercator wrote about it in letters and slapped it at center stage on his maps. Said the rock explained why compasses point north. So Ryan asked, Admiral Byrd's diary, fake or real? So there's 2 parts of his diary, right? There's the South Pole expedition diary that's declassified and available, and they say that's the real one. So there is a real Admiral Byrd's diary. The North Pole expedition, they claim is a fake leak. Um, it wasn't actually part of his diary, though it does fit a lot of narrative behind what others have saw at the North Pole. Oh, another thing I wanted to show you guys when I was going through some photos for the show prep here. I came across kind of tying into our Chicago World's Fair one. Give me just a moment here to pull that up. And I wanted to show that to you guys. Kind of mud flood related as well, so it might circle back around. But this is a building from the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, right? All those temporary buildings, the White City. This is about 1900, so about a decade after this World's Fair event took place. And this building that was built allegedly temporarily is now still standing. It's still standing today, actually, believe it or not. It's the Chicago Art Institute building, the art museum. Very beautiful museum. Massive paintings that are like 20, 30 feet tall, 20 feet wide, like impossible for like us regular size humans to paint. Like beautiful works of art there. Um, yeah, I wanted to kind of show you one of these temporary buildings. All of this plus 200 more were built in 18 months, right? And this looks very, to me, mud flooded and buried. All those lower levels right here, right? This is an electric horseless cart, by the way. But look at this cart. It's looks all broken apart, ran down like it's in some kind of Wild West side of the road. Very old looking brick path here. And this is all supposed to be relatively new, but look at the building. It looks like it's been here for hundreds of years. Of course, you got the whited out skies as usual, but look at the windows too. There is no windows here. It looks like they're either broken or removed. But yeah, this is just windowless shit sitting right next to Lake Michigan. You can see the lions that are still predominantly there today. But yeah, does that look like a temporary structure? It looks like it's already been buried and it's still sitting in a muddy field. Somebody, one of my comments pointed out that this looks like a black chicken right here by the horseless carriage to the right. It kind of does. It wouldn't surprise me if there's chickens walking around in the muddy fields next to it. I've seen buildings in Russia, St. Peter's Cathedral, I think it is. And oh, what city is that? Is no, it's not St. Peter's Cathedral. It's in St. Petersburg. But it's just this big, massive cathedral, and they're growing cabbages right next to it. I'll definitely have to show you that one. That building comes up a couple times in some mud flood topics when we get into worldwide connections here. And that'll be what we'll do in the next couple weeks, kind of tie in everything we talked about in America and we'll expand it worldwide. Also, you guys have been requesting like a Star Fort deep dive episode, what they were used for, how many are there, where they're all at. And yeah, we'll definitely have to do a deep dive on Star Forts coming up in the next couple episodes. So we'll kind of pause on these pictures here for a moment. Pull back up the North Pole, the actual North Pole. So I have a couple more questions here before we jump back in. And yeah, if you guys want to be on the show too as well, just I linked the Discord in chat here. Um, so you got the Discord where you can put in questions before the show. Drop questions in the comment sections or in the chat here as well. I do read through them all and kind of gather a list up for the next episode to answer. And also, if you guys want to be a part of the show, absolutely you should phone into the show. How that works, just put in my Discord chat or anywhere really. Try and send me a message, but the best place for me to see it is Discord. I'll touch base with you, speak for a couple minutes, and then we'll get you kind of pre-screened before the call or before the show. tomorrow I definitely want you guys to try and take that opportunity. I'll just throw the link out here real quick as well. I don't know if you guys can click on that. It should be clickable there down at the bottom. That's the link to the Discord. It's also in the chat. So take advantage of it. Like I said at the beginning of these episodes, these are your shows as well. And I really want them to be something, we can work on together, talk about things together in real time. So let me just pull back up the questions here because I want to get those out of the way before we continue. Sorry, my computer's already kind of being a little internet problem-ish. Okay, here we go. Chris says, I've seen a few maps of America where it said Atlantis. So is America possibly Atlantis? So very awesome question there, Chris. Yes, I have several of those Atlantis maps actually. We'll take a look at those later on in the episode as well. Very interesting thoughts on that. That's kind of where I'm leading, lots of talk of Atlantis, and then we have America, the founding of the New World. I think what that was, the New World, was actually the establishment of the New World Order. That's why I believe the mud flood took place somewhere around the 1700s to middle 1800s, right? At least the last one. I believe we have, and we talked about that in previous episodes too, several, dozens of resets as well. Wasn't just the mud flood, wasn't just the flood of Noah. There's at least a dozen of those in between the flood of Noah and the mud flood. Wicked Wayne says Atlanta is the capital of Atlantis. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's a great question, Chris. And we'll dive into that a little bit more here when we get away from the poles and go into America itself here for the mud flood. So Liam asked, the Garden of Eden at the poles, biblical or just theory? So another name for that region, I can't remember exactly who called that, Liam. Great question. Um, it was called Eden Meru, Paradise Found. Just like biblically, four rivers flowing inwards to Garden of Eden. So there's a lot of correlation with it. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't really go into a lot of that, but yeah, there is some correlation between the maps that we see of the North Pole with the four land masses, with the four rivers flowing inward. That sounds a lot like the Garden of Eden. Hyperborea, Aura of Truth says, yeah, another potential for it. Isabella, speaking of Rupus Nigre, the whirlpool around Rupus Nigre, what if it's real? Well, it very well could be. And I believe what that would mean is perhaps an entrance through that whirlpool to inner Earth, to lands like Agartha. Agartha has been talked about in a lot of ancient cultures, a lot of ancient civilizations mention these lands. There's also a couple other mentions of entrances in the Himalayas, in Gobi, South Pole also as well. Florida's flag. Jim, I'm not sure what is Florida's flag here. Does Florida's flag reference the North Pole in any way? Not exactly sure. Okay. So if those whirlpools are real, I mean, that explains why the magnetic mountain, 33 miles long or 33 miles wide, right? Why all of our compasses seem to be drawn there. And that whirlpool would be an entrance to that hollow earth or to Agartha. Four rivers. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Jim, I see what you're saying now. I did hear also Florida is a potential spot for biblical Eden as well. I've heard about that. Now I know what you're kind of saying there. Um, and yeah, it's because there's only a certain few places in the world that represent the geographic makeup for the biblical Eden, at least what was described in it. And Florida is one of those few locations. I don't remember exactly what city, but or area in Florida, but yeah, I remember exactly what you're talking about now, Jim. Okay, a couple more questions here. Okay, Ethan, here's a good one. Ethan says, Inner Sun in Hollow Earth. How does it work? So it's described in the alleged fictional Bird's Diary, said that it lit the green like day. The inner sun isn't like ours, it's smaller, about one third the size. Blue white, no flare, no wind, just a steady glow like a bulb behind fog. They call it central sun or plasma core. Doesn't orbit, just hovers over an inner sea. No shadows under it, no night. Plants grow sideways, river flows upwards towards warmth. So that's some of the descriptions of the inner sun from portions of Bird's diary. Um, so it radiates from below essentially. It's a plasma sun, which I believe kind of like our sun is. Not like they say it is necessarily, or at least how far it is. Um, okay, last one here. Neil says, birds high jump. Why the early pullback? So Operation High Jump. There's a lot of different stories on it. Stories that Bird went and engaged UFO craft from the Yahtzees, secret Yahtzee bases in Antarctica. Um, the official line is it was training exercise for the Navy, mapped the South Poles. The 13 ships, 33 aircraft. Well, there's another 33 for you. 4,700 men, best armada ever sent south, supposed to map the coast, test cold weather gear, left December 26th, 1946. In 1 month, they pulled back. They were supposed to be there, I believe it was for over a year. Um, but their dogs were dying, their planes were getting lost. Yeah, it was a 12-month exposition. The They supposedly left because of a winter storm incoming. There were several deaths. There wasn't any supposed, at least according to the official record, there wasn't any ship losses or anything. There wasn't any major. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I see that. Yeah, from the main source here, 33. So there wasn't any official losses of like mass loss of life and stuff. There was a couple crewmen that did lose their life there, but undisputably was a 12-month exposition that only lasted 1 month. So the only interview that Admiral Byrd really gave about that right afterwards was from El Mercuro in Chile, a interview that was later disputed by America. But in that interview, he said, the enemy can drop from pole to pole at 18,000 miles an hour. We have no defense. So basically, what he was saying is the enemies can go from pole to pole in no time at all, and that we had no defense against said technology. So they came across these ships, and then the theory is realized that they were well outmatched and well outgunned, despite being the largest armada ever sent to the South Pole. And they lost a few planes and lost a few men, and then they got the heck out of there. Livewire, that's a great question. I've also heard that Utah might be the true land of Israel due to mountain peak ranges, altitudes, and city names matching up. Um, so that whole southwest area of America is supposed to be like biblical Israel. Um, I think we should dive into that, like the Grand Canyon. That's supposed to be the actual Egyptian plateau. There's a lot of melted ruins, a lot of clear looking temples and other structures deep within the Grand Canyon. There was supposedly a couple expeditions into the Grand Canyon. Um, I can't remember the two. They're pretty famous explorers. I can't remember them off the top of my head. Um, but they went there and they both claimed that they found Egyptian artifacts, Egyptian hieroglyphics, um, which would lead me to believe that, that's part of either part of ancient Egypt or the actual Egypt. But I think the Grand Canyon can almost be an episode in itself, or at least a big portion of the episode. If you guys want to see more of that, we'll definitely put one together because, yeah, the basics of the Grand Canyon is most of it is off limits. It's kind of almost like a little mini Antarctica. Can only go on guided tours, little donkey rides down to the middle of it. A lot of the caves are literally sealed off with cement and supposedly guarded by federal agents. There is no fly zones, including drones, for most of the canyon area. And you can understand no flight zones for planes for the most part, but the drones thing is kind of odd. And they're very, by what I've heard, they're very strict about that enforcement. Um, Livewire, let's see. You said you live in the Grand Canyon, and an earlier explorer found finding things like that in a cave. I heard Smithsonian sent someone out, but they scrubbed any record of him making the trip. That's always seems to be the case. The Smithsonian, like another episode we'll do in the future, giants, um, in particularly all the giant remains. I think there's like over 1,000 or so of them. And I do have a Freedom of Information request into the Smithsonian, by the way, guys, for the official shipping manifest and shipping logs for that time period because there's hundreds of remains of giants, thousands of remains of giants all over America. You can find the newspaper clippings. Just go into like a old newspaper archive site, type in giants, and you'll start finding tons of articles from like the New York Times, all of those old, historically long established papers. It's no tabloids papers reporting these, right? Um, and you'll see that pretty much every one of them has the ending of the Smithsonian was called, collected the remains, and has not been heard back from. So essentially, they'll take these remains. They'll either say, "Oh, they're false, they're fake, they're not giants, they're dinosaur bones or something like that," or they'll say nothing. They'll just keep the remains. There's so much remains that have been shipped to the Smithsonian that just disappeared. So, yeah, when I get that Freedom of Information request back, that'll definitely be something hoping it'll be soon, and then we can have kind of a Giants episode, the Giants of America, like Lovelock Cave, stuff like that in Nevada. Um, because I really think when you look at some of these old architectural sites, especially in America, they look like they weren't made for us people. Like, you see the little people walking in the streets of these giant colossal buildings, and they, um they just look like little mini people compared to them. Like, they don't look like even the size of the streets. They don't look like they were made for just little people. Plastic War says they got dumped in the ocean and got sued for it. I've I looked into that a little bit years ago. I heard that that was kind of a hoax or not really any factualness, but of course, that's kind of what they'll say is, "Oh, that never actually happened," right? Um, but I can't find what I wanna know one way or the other ultimately is the shipping records. For somebody whose family was in trucking, transportation, um, shipping, logistics, I was an auditor for almost 20 years for, freight logistics and warehouse consulting. So what I look for in stuff like this is the logistics of it, like with the World's Fairs, the impossibility of the logistical supply chain. If you don't have a supply chain to bring in these materials, it's not going to happen. And, a horse and buggy supply chain does not make these World's Fairs possible. Um, but the shipping logs has to be there for these remains. They have to be accounted for in some way, shape, or form. So if I can find some irregularities like that, but the ocean story, I haven't really gotten too much from it. Great point bringing that up, though. Let's see. Alice says, maybe off topic, but I would like to see you talk about dragons. If it's just myth, or is there? Oh, yeah, dragons aren't myth. They're actually absolutely real. 100% dragons are what they call dinosaurs. Tons of historical references. It's just like giants. Every culture, every civilization pretty much talked about giants and didn't, or talked about giants and dragons. I didn't talk about them as myth, but talked about them as real. Um, okay, so we'll absolutely have an episode about dragons. But yeah, they were not a myth. They were absolutely real. Alexander the Great supposedly even fought one. There was an official dragon handler in the Chinese government, in the Chinese Empire, up until like the 1700s, I believe. But, all right, tons of great chat conversations, tons of great questions. I don't want to spend too much terribly more time into that. I want to kind of touch a little bit more on the North Pole before we go into our other topic on hand. So we'll get right to that. Give me just a moment here. I'm going to switch up to some of these other photos we have. Okay, so this is a Gartha, um, Hollow Earth, Inner Earth. Many such maps show very similar. Here's your inner sun, your inner entrances at the North and South Pole. Um, so let me just kind of flip over to my notes on that. And in modern times, like I said, you can't even see proper satellite images of them because, hang on just a second. Sorry, folks. Internet problems over here. My channel cuts out. I do apologize. I'm just kind of loading up my stream, waiting for that to refresh here. Okay. So these are two NASA photos I'm going to try and show you guys next if my internet's cooperating enough. The ESSA 7 and the ESSA 9, 1968 and 1970 shots of the poles. Um, and what you'll see here with them, and it's not loading at the moment. So while I wait for it to load up here, basically what you're seeing in those satellite images are big, giant black circles perfectly cut out in the center of the pole, where the pole should be. And that's very weird. And even like I said, and I'll show you on the Google Earth here in a moment as well. Okay, that one's actually going to work. So we're just going to go ahead and pull that up. And I'll show you my screen there. Okay. Oh, this is, by the way, my star fort map I kind of have been working on a little bit. Okay. So what I want you guys to do on your own here, and you can verify this, you're going to go to the North Pole where you see absolutely nothing here now, right? But you're going to go to the historic layers. Just a moment to pull that up here. Okay. And do you see it? And not only that, I don't know if you guys can faintly see that when you zoom in, you will see a very slight faint little 4 land masses right in the center, right there. I kind of can see it here. I don't know if you guys can see it. And then there's a big giant circle. Doesn't matter what year. We'll just kind of go through the years on their own here. 97, 98. You'll see all the lands around it changing, but that big circle in the middle where there's supposed to be no land, according to modern maps, there's just a big edited circle. The odd part is you see the same thing for Antarctica. You see just a right in the middle, a big white circle. And then when you do the time lapse, an even bigger circle right in the middle, right where the supposed entrance to inner Earth is. One of two of them. You can see all the other lands around it while we're doing the time lapse changing. But a big giant black edited circle. Okay. Let's see if that one photo has loaded up yet for you guys. No, it has not yet. Okay. Lovely. As I continue to try and show you that ESSA satellite photo, show you a little bit more on Antarctica. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. This one is not in Antarctica, but okay, modern time. All right. So this is in a region right at the tip of South America. It is in a Parque Nacional, which is a nature preserve, which means you're not allowed in there, not allowed to explore. But enter these coordinates right here into your Google Earth and check out the scary looking faces you'll see here. Um, I don't they don't even look like, mud fossil titans, to be honest. They look more like satanic. Oh wait, hang on. My screen didn't isn't sharing for you guys. Let me pull them back up. Sorry, folks. Okay. Can you guys see that now? Okay. So we got this devil face, and here is the coordinates, by the way. If you guys want to enter them yourself. There's nothing around this area, but what there is a bunch of demonic faces. There's one, There's one. There's one. There's like a demonic looking owl face. Um, one right here. If you turn around, you see another very evil one, devil face that's marked. Now, those aren't official Google pens. I think those are ones people are putting in. But all around this little region, you'll see here's like another one right here. Where is this Nephilim hunter? Ask. This is right at the tip of South America on one of the little island chains here in a nature preserve, Parque Naturalos. I'm not going to pronounce the rest of that, or try to, I should say. This whole area is pretty much off limits. It's a nature preserve, so no independent explorations or access to it, which makes it even odder. And it's pretty much right next door to South America. And it's just on this little island right here. Just tons of like very otherworldly faces. They don't remind me of like the typical mud fossil, mountain faces, right? Um, they just look very demonic, very like hair raising feeling every time I look at this area, to be honest with you. Another awesome little Google Earth spot while we're at it is the supposed serpent. I don't know if you guys know about this. The great serpent right here, how it looks like a snake's head. You can even see the two eyes right there. And when you zoom in, you can see its mouth or its teeth region right here. It's very odd looking pareidolia, they would call it, but we know that everything is a lot bigger. There's a lot of like Norse, like it's the oh, I don't remember what it's called in Norse mythology. The world's end dragon or world serpent, that it basically once that wakens up, the Leviathan wakens up. That's when their version of the reset comes. Let's see if that picture pulls up now for you guys. Oh, yes, here we go. Okay, what we're looking at here, ESSA, polar survey, polar satellite shots from the 1960s, 1968. And as you can see, same with the Google Earth images, either by design or deliberate edits, a big giant circle. They say that's because satellites can't exactly fly into it or whatever, but you also see, if I can pull up the next one here, ESSA 9. I don't want to close this out and reopen it because then it'll take forever to pull up, but it looks like that's what it's going to have me do. So if you look at them back to back, sorry, folks. Everything's going really slow on my internet here. I'm getting internet advisories as we speak, saying service issues. So I don't know if you guys can still hear me okay, but we'll continue on. Foregoing the lag for the moment here. Might not be able to pull up any shots here if it's going to be that laggy. Yeah, sorry. It is my internet. Hopefully my talking is still clear. So we'll move on from that for the moment here. Hopefully my internet comes back up. Try refreshing this for you guys. Hang on. I'm sorry. Just a moment. Technical difficulties. Okay. I'm going to reset my program here real quick, guys. While we do that, it's going to be a great time for a quick sponsor break. Give me about a minute and a half here to get everything back on, and then we'll jump back into it. A quick shout out to this program sponsor, Riverside. If these live shows sound smooth and clear, that's Riverside making it happen. Killer audio, zero hassle, and it works every time, even on long nights like tonight. I've tried a bunch. This is the one that actually delivers. Want to start your own podcast? You should totally do it. Make your voice heard. Grab my link in the bio or show notes. It's an affiliate link, helps support the show, costs you nothing. Thanks for listening. Now back to the mysteries. Okay, folks. I am still here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. My whole screen's black right now. Um, might have to restart the computer here. Trying to see if it'll kind of wake back up on its own. Um, in the meantime, I'm just going to assume here because it still says that I'm live on my phone. So I'm just going to assume that you guys can hear me, and I'm just going to read from my notes until I can bring my show back up here and get you some visuals. But the ESSA 7 and the ESSA 9 in 1970 has the same exact black hole cutouts, black circular cutouts. Similar to what you see from the Google Earth time lapse that we shown, the 2000 to 2024 circle doesn't move, just a big giant black circle. So the 1947 high jump here we talked about as well. 4,700 men, 13 ships, 33 planes, came back with half the dogs, no footage. And then the only quote from Bird that we got here from that newspaper article. Boy, I'm really sorry for this poor performance here on this episode, guys. My computer's just still, I'm on a black screen here. Mm. Okay. So I'd like to talk about the mud flood here next and the Atlantis maps in America. Um, unfortunately, with this computer acting the way it is, it's going to be kind of hard. Tell you guys what, I'm going to just hard restart this computer and restart the lives from all the platforms. If you guys are listening in, just be patient for about a minute or two. It will go down, but we'll be right back up here, okay? And hopefully that should take care of the issues. Just hold tight for just a moment, folks. I'll be right back. You folks, sorry about that. You folks, sorry about that issue. Hope you can all hear me better. Computer seems to be cooperating a little bit. Had a little bit of a power flicker in the meantime as well. So that's that frozen northern wasteland that we're experiencing right now, right? It is negative, what is it? Negative 10 right now. Oof. I can hear that wind cracking at my windows like nobody's business. But it seems like we are back here. Everything seems to be working much, much better after I reset it here. I'm going to try and jump into the mud flood photos, kind of pin it on that North Pole thing here. A couple more things that I did want to touch base on with that here. Um, Tolkien for Lord of the Rings also said to allegedly have gotten a lot of his inspiration from these inner earth maps, hidden maps that he found while volunteering at a Catholic church. He was in the basement there and allegedly found stacks of like diaries, stacks of old maps, etc. that he based a lot of supposedly a lot of what he wrote in the Lord of the Rings on. Um, Another thing, one of the first persons to get into the upper stratosphere of the Earth, Augustus Picard, in his hot air balloon venture, he mentioned that the Earth was an upturned disk with or a flat disk with upturned edges. Um, so primarily what I kind of wanted to lean with that North America or with the North Pole stuff is why I say I'm not a flat earther, I'm not a globe earther. Um, I there's really so much interesting correlations between these old world maps that it could be a hollow earth, could be um many different things. It could be flat. It very well could be. I know it's not what NASA tells us it is, right? We know there's no satellites, at least not ones floating around in space. If you look for any real satellite photos, you'll only see fake CGI pictures of them. Um, we know they never went to the moon. Um, they went to the moon, they say, in the 60s, but then they lost the technology to go back. Um, they also coincidentally deleted the telemetry data, all the films, the original films, a lot of it, they recorded over those films. So we don't have the technology that was destroyed. We don't have the telemetry data that was taped over. Um, Mystic, you said, I heard Walmarts are empty. Everyone is buying to stock up. Oh, wow. I love a good panic buy, don't you? Um, well, I hope it's not the mini ice age, but it definitely feels like that right now. The wind when that temperature was coming in tonight, it went from like 20 degrees today down to like 5 in like an hour's time. You could like the wind was just a weird sounding wind. We're supposed to have exploding trees up here. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of that thing, but apparently when it gets so cold so quickly, the trees can literally explode from the expanding ice from the moisture on the inside of the inner tree. So that sounds like fun. Yeah, King. It's a painful process to build it back again. That guy, oh gosh, what is his name? He is like the worst spokesman for NASA ever. It's like, gosh, what's his name? Don something. He's this bald dude with glasses. If you guys ever seen him, he's just like the silliest dude. He was trying to explain to this one guy giving him an interview about what you would do in the International Space Station if it had a leak. And this guy's supposed to be the engineer in charge of fixing things in the space station. He's like, if you have a leak, that you just have a leak, and you hopefully you don't, but there's some procedures." And yeah, Don Pettit, that's it. Oh gosh, that guy is so hilarious. I've done some videos on him way, way, way back, but I felt it was like dunking on like a disabled child. It was kind of cruel at that point. The The video you guys should watch is, his invention of his cup in space. That one's hilarious. Oh my gosh. That guy is like the poster child of space is fake. If Don Pettit can go into, space, it's really not anything special. Um, but yeah, this is why, though, looking at all those North Pole, South Pole irregularities, why I'm not necessarily sold completely on the flat Earth. Um, 'Cause none of the flat Earth models exactly express what is in the North Pole, anything underground, and a lot of ancient civilizations talked about inner lands, inner civilizations. Um, I think it's weird that we find tons of cities underground, like old cities underground that could house 10,000 people plus. Why were all these cities underground? Were they connected to underground Earth? Were they part of a reset event? Um, really just don't know, and that's until I get I'm the type of person where I never fully, commit to like, one theory, one conclusion, because you get more and more coming out daily. More people waking up, more people finding, hidden records, stuff buried in attics, etcetera. That completely changes the narrative. Um, and we know they lie to us about everything. We don't even know what the actual date is. We were once in a 13-month, 28-day calendar cycle that they completely removed from us. We're now on a discombobulated system. There's 13 lunar cycles in a year. It was all synced up with the lunar cycles, women's cycles, and then they almost wanna, like, purposely desynchronize us from this earth, our connection from it. Grounding even, like, our shoes, our rubber soles on our shoes are meant to, like, keep us insulated from the connection of the earth. Um, our old world ancestors wore natural shoes. They even had shoes with magnets in the bottom, which is an interesting thing as well. But right now here, 'cause we kinda got a little derailed from that computer issue, let's talk about America. What is America? Um, as I say that, I am going to, fingers crossed here, folks, pull up some America Atlantis maps and see if it'll allow me to. Yeah, perfect, beautiful, lovely. All right. So here's just one of many maps that shows America as Atlantis. And it looks very similar to the maps that are in current days, except a little bit distorted around the northern regions by Alaska. It looks like almost Alaska and Russia are fully connected in this one. California is an island, which you see in many, many old world maps as well. Um, I believe this is a map pre reset, the last map before the reset. You have no Great Lakes, right? There's like all the maps until like the 1600s, I believe, has no Great Lakes in them. Um, they just have like a big stream inwards and Shilaga in the middle of it, where Chicago is now on modern maps. Here's another view from NASA I want to show you guys too as well. This is a overhead shot of the North Pole from NASA in 2016, October 30th. Um, Complete blacked out area in the North Pole, right where those four land masses are, right? So it's pretty interesting that we always see those removed. Here's another NASA, I believe, like jet stream projection video that or picture they had from 2016, showing a big circle just kind of removed. And here we see another map of America, though. Atlantis, right here. So I believe that the New World, the discovery of the New World, was actually the rediscovery of the Old World, the founding of the Old World. And I believe America was like a big part of kicking off that whole new narrative, new world order type of switch. I believe after the reset, the good powers that be in the world, I believe those were in civilizations like Tartaria and other areas um, that were actually working for the betterment of man, areas where they had free energy technology in abundance, those ether antennas, those cymatic pattern buildings, those temples, those cathedrals, um, with cymatic patterns still showing today on their floors. Those were places of uplifting and healing, not places of worship, places of blind worship. I believe much like modern medicine, modern education system, um, the modern religion, all sects of the modern religion is just another form of control and division. I've talked about that in previous episodes, right? They want us divided into smaller and smaller groups, and religion is a great way to do that. So think about it, 1500s or so, after a previous reset, all these great civilizations were wiped for the most part in America. And you had people like the natives talking about ancient ruins and stuff that they found. If you look at like Cherokee and the Smokies, the Cherokees talked about stone roads older than the trees, leading to a city where the water runs backwards. Kids play in the arches. The Pablo, the Osaki, the Choctaw all talk about ancient ruins or ancient civilizations, and they were just walking on the ruins of lands. So there is tons of native lore about ancient civilizations, about ancient resets. We don't hear too much about that. A lot of native history is passed down orally, um, but there is tons of evidence to back up the many resets, and America being the ruins of old world empires. So, see if I have a couple more pictures I can pull up of it. Here's another satellite imagery from NASA, the Cairo Sat imagery from 2010, 2011, and 2012. Each of these showing another doctored hole in the middle of the North Pole. Another one with a hole removed in the middle. Here's those ESSAs. So now they're all kind of popping up on me at once here, so that's okay. Here's another pre-reset map of America, the California Islands. And here is the ledger in that map, Atlantis Insula. Another Atlantis in the top left ledger of that map. Okay, so what was Atlantis then? What's your opinion on Paul Bunyan and his giant ox? Finally caught alive, might be off topic. Hey, there's no off topics here, Super B. Uh, These conversations are what you guys want to chat about as well, especially on Fridays. Those are open line segments, but I take audience questions throughout the episode. So I believe Paul Bunyan and his giant ox is based more in reality than most of our history. Um, I believe there absolutely were giants like that. I don't know about Paul Bunyan necessarily himself being one. I do know you could find Paul Bunyan's axe on the King of Wings in Mexico. People always ask where the giant trees that cut down all of these, or where are these giant axes or chainsaws that cut down all of these trees. King of Wings has one. Let's see if I can pull that up for you guys real quick while we're on the topic. Yeah, here we go. This is the giant axe and King of Wings here. So that's pretty cool. It's like a little tiny hatchet. It's smaller than a lot of the pictures do its credit, but it's a perfectly kind of shaped axe, just sitting on like a little tiny petrified stump, it looks like. Here's the handle. Petrified axe, petrified stump. It's a nice picture of it from different angles. But yeah, it's not a huge axe, but I always like to point people to the King of Wings, and that's King of Wings in Mexico for you guys, if you're wondering. Yeah, the giant trees, mystic, second Earth civilization. Book of Enoch actually talks about them. God sent down the angels to cut down the trees to flood the world and kill the Nephilim, essentially the fallen angels. Yeah, a lot of people think that the world is still ran secretly, in part, at least America, by the Nephilim. Um, they influence a lot of US politics and stuff. There's a lot of interesting stories about that when we do some digging into giants. Um, we'll definitely kind of talk about the Nephilims running the world's governments now. So, Atlantis, being America, seems very plausible. A lot of plausibility to it when you look at some of the old world photos in America. Um, you have this massive architecture, a lot of it that only survives for 50 years or so if it's not lost in one of the great fires in America, right? We talked about those. They're magically branched out into quadrants, the Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, the East Coast, and the West Coast, all happening in almost military precision. And what you don't see burned, you see buried. So it's like all of America, like the rest of the world, but in particularly when you see photos of America that's supposedly a new nation, you see a bunch of buried buildings and piles of mud, brick rubble. This one, this is from Shelbyville, Illinois, near my neck of the woods where I grew up in Illinois. Um, so they were doing some renovation work on the main street, and this happens so many times. There's so many news articles. You can go online, go to like YouTube and type in news story, local local news station. This is how I found so many local news story, hidden underground found. And you'll find in so many of these cities, Sacramento, um, Shelbyville, Ybor, Florida, even some in Australia, of them just doing some average, digging of the streets, and boom, they find these completely buried red brick off, so most of the time, archways, buried windows and doors, and they have no explanation for it. And this is supposed to be in America. We're not talking about somewhere in Europe where, they're supposed to be hundreds, if not thousands of years old, where, okay, a little bit of lost history is to be expected. But this is a relatively new city. that's supposed to be around mid 1800s, and they have no idea where these hidden layers came from. Here's another very buried looking building in Iowa. Just some more of that art institute that we were talking about. This looks like a is a lot more renovated now, right? You got the foundation here that they put in place. Still very muddy fields all around, it looks like. No kind of landscaping at all for such a major building. And again, that one's supposed to be a temporary building from that 1893 World's Fair, right? Built in only 18 months to harsh 25 negative 25 degree plus below zero winters right off the lakefront. I don't know if you can see right behind the building. That's the Lake Michigan there. But yeah, they whipped that up in 18 months. Most of them were all supposed to be temporary. They saved that, the Science and Industry Museum as well. Here's another little bit. This is supposedly when they regraded Denny Hill, raised the street levels of Seattle after the Great Seattle Fire. But look at the stonework here from what was, like, peeled away. You can see, like, the dirt layers and, like, how aged it looks. It's like they just and these houses, again, look very, almost AI generated, despite they are being from, official sources. You see that little fuzziness from where they cut off the sky right here. Little fake windows looking. They look just very, like, kind of pasted on there almost. I don't really know how to explain it, but you can see the age difference in the foundation here. And supposedly they just tore out, tons and tons of mud after the Great Seattle Fire. Here's Kansas City as well, kind of same looking scenario as you see in Seattle. They supposedly had a big fascination with just digging out tons of and tons of dirt without having modern cranes or anything like that. And you see this beautiful brick building just supposedly built right next to this big pile of mud. Another close shot. This is a little side by side angle of it. So you got brick buildings right here on top. You have these two buildings that are supposed to be relatively new, just a pile of mud and dirt right up next to it. Makes absolutely no sense. And it's like they were, you know, even if you want to believe that they just dug 30 feet of dirt out to build Kansas City, which is what they're saying you're seeing here, to re-level the grade or whatever. Like, how could they do that? I mean, look at the carts you see right here. Just nothing but little like horse push carts. They have no heavy machinery, no cranes, nothing like that. No power tools. And if we were to do something today, this would be a monumentous undertaking. You don't see them doing it today because it's dang near impossible. In a town near me, Appleton, Wisconsin. I was digging into some of the history there years ago, and they filled in the whole valley by telling residents, this is the official narrative. They raised it by telling people to just throw their refuge into the valley to raise the dirt, to get the material to raise the dirt in the valley. So they're saying that they filled Appleton in with garbage essentially. You can see some holes poking through though right here, like almost part of a buried structure in this picture. Very interesting. I love the Kansas City photos. Here's another one supposedly of Denny Hill Street raising in Seattle. Just piles of mud, no heavy machinery really to speak of. Whited out skies. That's that art institute that we kind of talked about. They used these water cannons to level out most of Denny Hill, they claim, and some really rickety old steam cranes. You'll see here in a couple pictures as well. So this is, yeah, leveling streets in Seattle. Um, so the Denny Hill on top of where the Great Fire came, they just basically sprayed all of this dirt and washed the mud down the roads. to fill in all the burnt layers. However, like I've said, in the Seattle underground, you don't see burned brick, you don't see charged stone, you don't see any of that that's indicative to this great fire that they needed to bury and build over. Picture in San Francisco after a earthquake in 42. I mean, just look at some of this architecture, just like lack of landscaping, lack of like any kind of like leveling. Like there's just like sawhorse right here, little tiny old stone steps going up to nowhere right here in the US Capitol, big piles of mud right there, and just muddy roads with like carved out tracks. This one's really funny. This one's Kansas City as well. Just look at these rickety stairs up to this building. You can see the stone foundation going much deeper. They just got these poles, couple guys standing around in suits right here. And this is what you find again worldwide. They can somewhat explain it away in older cities like, Europe, Rome, but all of these cities are uniformly buried 30 to 40 feet in mud, several meters of mud. And every time you dig down, you find buried floors, lost buildings that are just completely buried over in the mud. And that's why I said the mud flood, was worldwide, at least in some degree, because you see the same burying all over. Just look at how we leave it. This isn't really quite mud floodish, but I want to just throw this. And this is, the Star Fort Statue of Liberty built right on top of it. This is the island that it is. It's just in shambles and ruins. Like all these beautiful brick stonework buildings right around there. And then there's these shacks. It's like the people that came in, build up this area, unburied these things. Like the little rickety wooden buildings that they built around them are nowhere close to the quality that the rest of the buildings show. So, this is another one too, looking at the US Capitol. So, you have these pillars. This was during a renovation of the Capitol in the early 2000s. Um, so, you see some buried stonework right here where these red circles are, some big stone pillars. Those pillars go downwards from the base of the stairwell, and you see that structure continuing along the sides there. Some more Denny Hill. So it's not just a basement level when you see that same ornate stonework, that same pattern continuing below ground. You don't build a foundation like that. You don't build a foundation with buried windows and doors and then pile it up with dirt. You just don't you just don't build that kind of detail where nobody's going to see it, but you seeing it there on the US Capitol. Here's another just odd picture. I think so much of these old pictures we're seeing are fakes, like straight up, like they're presented to us as real, but we know whatever technology they give us in the private sector, the government has, decades, if not hundreds of years better technology already. So they just are releasing AI a couple years, not even a decade yet. And you can see some of the images and stuff that they generate now. I mean, still, most people with a keen eye can tell if it's AI or not, but we see anomalies and so much of them that are easy to tell. That's what I think we see in a lot of these history photos, like objects like this house that just looks completely out of place in all of these piles of dirt. Like, why would you have a house here and it looks like a brand new like catalog house from the Sears company? Just, like, copied and pasted it right in the middle of those berms to say, "Oh, yeah, see, we're just, like, leveling everything out, and, that's, the baseline where it's gonna be after we spray all this mud down." You see a lot of it, like, when that science or that, art institute photo we showed as well, like, just looking almost like bad Photoshop, bad AI. Same with the skies being whited out. And here is a photo of the underground in Seattle too. This is part of the tour. And where is the supposed burn marks? I mean, the Great Fire of Seattle leveled almost half the city. Seattle, Pacific Ocean tsunami. I mean, that's very well possible, Mystic. Um, it could be a tsunami, could be like, I think it was caused by some kind of cataclysmic earthquake or something like that that causes that frequency, that shaking that can cause soil liquefaction. Um, an earthquake and tsunami cause afterwards could be definitely a possibility. Another thing I want to kind of show you guys here in another couple episodes, they have a book that's declassified in the CIA. If you go to the CIA's website, go to the Freedom of Information section and go to type in Gilgamesh, you will see a book. I can't remember the title of it, but it talks about a worldwide cataclysmic event happening in America. Talking about like winds that are so strong that it like cuts through trees like a razor blade type of stuff, waves of water coming from the Pacific all the way to Pikes Peak, uh, coming up just to the top of Pikes Peak, which is one of the highest, if not the highest mountains in the Rockies. I've actually been to the top of Pikes Peak. It's beautiful and scary at the same time. If you guys have ever been on to a top of a mountain, you know what I'm talking about. But it's definitely worth it. But driving up, it was nail biting. Very white knuckle driving there, let me tell you, but worth it. Here's another part of the science or the Art Institute of Chicago. You can see very buried out right here. It looks like they kind of dug out part of those windows at the bottom there. The other side that was still buried in those previous images. But yeah, no landscaping. It looks like they don't have that foundation built all the way in this picture yet. This is part of the Mormon temple, Latter day Saints temple in Salt Lake when they were working on some foundation work and see how far down it goes. And it probably goes a lot further than they dug out, but you can see continuation of the architecture, those archways continuing below ground. Looks like an entranceway right here as well, right? 1813 volcano that caused a 1-year ice freeze, Mystic. Um, I haven't heard about the 1813 volcano specifically, but I mean that's another possibility, like a extreme chain of eruptions causing a bunch of volcanic ash to black out the sky, black out the sun, causing freezing waters, bunch of bunch of stuff. The volcanic ash could fall and rain down from the sky. That's another theory. The mud came from the sky, not the ground itself. Here's one very disputed here. You can look at this on Google Earth here. That's the coordinates right here. Ritz Carlton, Half Moon Bay, California. You can really see it from the beach. Officially, the narrative is this was a support structure for a building they were going to build on top of it, but there is the golf course, I believe, right, that goes right through it here. They were going to build a support structure for a building, but it failed and they decided not to. So they just left this whole thing in ruin. And you can see from Google Earth view of Half Moon Bay, if you click on the actual like Half Moon Bay itself, not like on top, you can see the pillars and they look like very old Greek Roman pillars. Um, Let me see if I can get that pulled up here, if that's going to cooperate on mine or not here. Doesn't seem to have a problem when I pull up another tab. So we'll see if it'll let me do that here. Uno momento, por favor. Okay. Yeah, it seems to let me do that. So let's see if I can show you that if it still shows you from Google Earth. Okay. So we are looking here for the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. Guess I should have typed that in as well. All right, here we go. Looks like they completely removed it in this picture. Yeah, you can still kind of see the columns on Earth view right there. They run all the way along the side. And when you go to the street view here on it, let's see if that's still there. You click on one of the ones off the beach. Yeah, there we go. Take a look at that. Look at how old those pillars look. They say it was a relatively temporary structure, or a structure that was made to house a building on top, but it was never to fruition. But look how far down those columns go. See if I can get a closer view on it. Go a little over time today. It's already past 12, but that's okay because we had some computer issues at the beginning. And tomorrow's show, what we're going to do here, open lines Friday as usual. Look at that. Look at that. Massive pillars, and most of them are just in ruin now, just sitting there. But they had a video that it's like a drone site. Mystic, you have a great day. Stay warm as well. Um, Thanks for stopping by to the live. So next Friday or tomorrow, Friday, and every Friday is going to be an open line style format. As you see, I take questions from the chat throughout the show, but Friday in particular, you guys drive the show, whatever topics you want to talk about. It is all up to you. If you want to be a part of the show, if you want to call in and be a guest, join my Discord here. I'm going to drop the link as well. Again, that is going to be popping up on the screen here in just a moment for you guys. So it's also in my link tree. Um, Join the Discord. Tell me you want to be a caller on the show tomorrow, and we'll get you into the queue and get you on the show. Um, I'm not expecting that part to kind of take off right away as we're, still in episode 8, but I do encourage you guys to step up and call in, be one of the first callers of the show. Love to hear from you guys. Love to have you guys help shape the conversation. Jim, you said, I bet there is a huge underground in the Ritz Carlton. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There is. You've seen how many of those pillars went down, even more than those side views here can kind of do it. That looks like it's a couple years ago, so it's still kind of relatively intact, but like those pillars go even further out than what's seen here, right? This is a picture of the flood of Denver. Just kind of going through a couple of these photos of America's mud flood. Here's a building. I mean, look at how they built so many of these buildings back then, supposedly. New construction. This is the 1800s photo, right? And they just build the ramp right to this grain silo on these really, really rickety looking, almost like pallets. They just kind of threw together to the entrance, supposedly, all covered around it in dirt. This is part of the underground in Sacramento. Again, they raised Sacramento street levels supposedly for flooding, but you see that it is dry as a bone in there. This is some of the great floods of Dallas. Here is them regrading. This is the 1914. This is Kansas City, Missouri. See all those old brick right here, old structure right here, whatever they're unearthing right here, and those houses sitting on top of those hills. The little horse carrying a big pile of cement, it looks like. Very, very odd. This is a part of Denny Hill right here as well. All that mud, all that just yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? Let's see if I can find a couple more American mud flood pictures here. I like this gentleman walking around in New York showing all the lowered levels to these buildings. Little archway right back there. See that right there? Yeah. It's like who just builds a little archway right there that you can't even access? Beautiful little columns though, still. More of the undergrounds here. No burning. This is in Seattle, I believe. Here is a building unearthed in Independence, Iowa. Shout out to the Hawkeye State, my home, my birth state, I should say. Yeah, they were doing some renovation work here on the sidewalk in Independence, Iowa, and they realized that the ground floor is actually about 30 feet beneath mud. And you had buried arched doors, buried windows, same old, same old. Recently, took a drive through Iowa, my grandma's funeral, and you could see a lot of these small little Iowa towns with tons of mud flood evidence that hasn't gotten buried and regraded properly. Some more of that Seattle underground with absolutely no fire marks at all. Here's a Kansas City building that's unearthed in 1870. See all the piles of mud all around it. Apparently, this was a fire that they were tearing down the building from. Some more of the underground in Seattle. Just kind of want to rush through some of this here. This is after a earthquake in the East Coast. You can see all the buried red brick arches and stuff under here. Let's see. This is in New York. Let's see. Riverside Drive in New York in 1903. Just a big pile of mud in between beautiful buildings. Also, this one looks completely sunken a couple floors as well. And this one as well. You can see the buried windows. So, you see that pattern everywhere in America, coast to coast. Florida, which doesn't have basements, you have tons of buried floors. Um, Tons of examples everywhere you go in America. America does seem like it's much older, much grander than it should be. And we rushed in America, especially to tear down so much of these beautiful buildings, because I think they knew people would start wondering where all these beautiful structures where they came from and how they were built so quickly. So they did such a rush job at running highway systems through the hearts of these beautiful cities that completely gutted some of these old world buildings to kind of cover up some of that narrative, some of the old world architecture that, if all that abundant stuff, like if you look at Detroit and stuff, um, clay, Susan asks, is mud used in brick making? Maybe a connection there. Um, so it's, there's a couple different types of ways to make brick. The red brick particularly was red clay, which couldn't be made locally unless there was red clay, which was another oddity. So they had to, source these bricks from somewhere. Um, so I mean, it could partially be used from like the mud, like mix of the mortar and stuff, right? This is a shot from Kansas City in the 1800s. What I really liked about it is you got this like little, definitely looking buried archway. These stones right here, and the higher up you go, they're still looking like bricks, but they get like melted and deformed. So it looks like not only America suffers from the mud flood, it also shows signs of that plasma storm, that melting event that melted so many structures and buried them as well. Here's another scene of it. You can see bits of that brick pattern still in these tops of what is supposed to be just stone, I believe. You can see like right underneath here, that brickwork. And this is all supposed to be brand new in Kansas City, Missouri here. It's another Kansas City shot. You can see these little houses, all these dirt piles, people just standing around, supposedly excavating them all and regrading it all. And another one. 1868. Just people standing on top of these mud piles with houses supposedly built right on top of them. It does not add up, does it? This one big mud hill, you can see like looks like some kind of like pillars and stuff right here. Some parts of a building popping out right here on the side. And this is from 1868 in Kansas City as well. Some more Kansas City shots. What else do I got here for you guys before I wrap it up? Very old looking castle in Kansas City right here. This is a cool little I think it's the National Guard building in New York, but you can see those buried floors right there. And right here, you can see like they just have this little like fence there and the big like drop right there and a stairwell over those drops. Another part of the US Capitol. And another shot of it. Okay. Wicked says it is clear when you know what it is. Yes, absolutely. You see it everywhere. You see it in every street or every main street in America. Any city that you see with buildings that are founded around the 1800s, early 1900s, good chance you can find easily evidence of the mud flood in them. Main streets of your cities, big and small, are great shots to find those in. Um, Recommend you guys all look around locally for them, take some pictures, upload them. Be a great part for Open Line Friday, calling in and sending me your chats about your local mud flood examples you found yourself. I would love to hear from them. So, with that said, here we're about 12 minutes over time here, so I kind of wrap it up for the evening. Um, Open Line Fridays tomorrow, 10:30 p.m. Central Time, live again. Um, Also, just want to take a moment here to mention my one sponsor of this program, Riverside. Shoot you guys the link here as well. If you guys want to know what you can do to support this program, just check out Riverside, hit the link there. It's an affiliate link. It helps me out. No obligation to you guys, but Riverside is what we use here to host this podcast. It is a product that I believe in, and it's a great company. With that said, though, folks, I hope you guys are staying warm if you're part of this winter storm. I hope if you guys are getting snow, we're not actually getting any snow up here in northern Wisconsin, but if you guys are getting snow, hope it's not too much. I know how fun that is. Hope to see all of you guys here tomorrow for Open Lines Friday. We will talk more about the mud flood in America and whatever you guys want to talk about. But keep the faith. We are breaking through the veil, guys. More people are waking up daily. Don't feel like nothing that we're looking through, all this stuff that we're uncovering, it's not going to make a difference because we are making the powers that be nervous. No matter what they do, internet censorship, whatever, more and more people are waking up daily, not just to our history that is nothing but a set of lies agreed upon, but all of our current events, everything else. We're realizing that the people that are in control do not have our best interest. And when those scales tip, and I think it's close to that tipping point, that's when we will really see a big difference. So keep questioning everything, friends. Keep poking at the narrative. Keep asking questions because that's how you keep your freedom. And as always, friends, question everything. Until next time, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a